Now I've got a list of patterns on my to-do list that's getting pretty long, but sometimes I like to just pull one of my really old books off the shelf, flip through it, and find something to tie. And if you like really obscure, pretty much forgotten flies, I think you're gonna like this one. Howdy everybody, welcome back. I'm Matt, thanks for stopping by. So one of the books in my library is by William Bayard Sturgis, simply called Fly Tying. Now this thing was published in 1940, this is a 1940 version. I think it went through at least one more printing in the 60s. Now when I was flipping through this book today, I came across a pattern that I had vaguely heard of. I just couldn't remember where, so I went online to look for it. Didn't find much information. I found a couple of sketchy pictures of it. But I did find it in my forgotten flies back there. The pattern I'm talking about, it's called the Reuben Wood. So who exactly is Reuben Wood? Well, he was from Greenbush, New York. That's pretty much upstate. Born in 1822, died in 1884. So we know this pattern is a really old fly. And then that got me to thinking, I looked it up in Mary Orvis Marbury's favorite flies, and I saw it was on plate T, and guess what? That's one that I had framed right here. So that is probably how I'd heard of the fly. It's this guy right here. When I bought this, many years ago, I researched the flies on it, and that's probably why the name Reuben Wood stuck in my head. But it is largely a forgotten fly. I mean, you're not going to find it in any pattern encyclopedias out there, really. Certainly not going to find it in a fly shop today. But apparently it was a pretty popular fly up in the Adirondacks in the mid-1800s. But it's a pretty simple pattern and really fun to tie. I hope some of you folks out there will give it a shot. Help us keep the legend of the Reuben Wood around for another generation or two. So there's one in the vise, a Reub Wood. Now tie this on whatever size you tie your wet flies on. One thing to note, I forgot to use red thread on this one in here, but we'll fix that on the one we're just about to do. So I'm going to tie this on a size 10. 10, 12, 14, probably all good size, even a little bit bigger if you want to. So I'm put down a base red thread all the way to the start of the bend. Now it does call for a red floss tag. If you wanted to, I suppose you could just use that red thread, continue on with the tag, but I'm going to just go ahead. I've already got my red floss out, and it will make a little bit quicker work of it. Okay, so that's about where I'm going to stop it. So I'll go 1, 2, 3 thread wraps, wide wraps, just to get my bobbin out of the way. And I'm going to take this back with this floss, maybe 3 widths, get a decent sized tag on here because otherwise that chenille would probably hide it. Okay, and let's back this off 3 turns. Now my thread is hanging on right where I'm going to catch it off. And this floss is splitting up just a little bit on me, but that's fine. Go ahead and snip this. Keep this piece if you're going to tie another one. Now before we catch in our chenille, let's go ahead and do the tail, just mallard flank feathers. And what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to grab 8 or 10 of them, and I'm going to keep them together. Go ahead and snip it right here. And I'm going to tie it in right here with them together. They might split up on me. They already have started, but if they do, I wouldn't worry about it. Do you want them swept up, swept down? Either way, up to you, I guess. I think a little bit swept up looks kind of good on these wet flies. Okay, that's a little bit too much up, so I'm going to take a couple wraps back just to try and lay it down a little flatter. All right, that'll work. All right, now either snip this or just bury it. I'm going to go ahead and snip it because otherwise it would be a little too long. And I can bury the rest right here before we catch in the chenille. I seem to be using a lot of chenille lately. It's not anything by intent, it's just the way it worked out. So take a white chenille. I'm going to use a medium. I think you could get away with a small, but I want it to be just a little bit fatter. So I stripped a little bit of it off the tip to leave me a thread core to catch in. Now take your thread back up to the front, maybe 2 eye lengths back, because we do have a wing and a hackle. So let's just try to fluff this chenille up a little bit. And then just touch and turns, one right in front of the other. I wouldn't necessarily try to overlap them. Okay, now let's catch this off with a couple wraps. Got a little fuzz right here, and a few extra wraps just to really lock this in. Now we'll tie in our wing before we do the front hackle, and it's just one of that same mallard flank feathers right here. And what you can do on this one, because they're going to have a natural bend to them, take 2. This is actually 2 slits right here back to back, so it kind of straightens them up. And you could spend a lot of time on this part picking the perfect mallard flank feathers. And if you were doing a presentation fly, you'd probably want to. But if you're just doing a fishing fly, I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time on it because they're probably going to bunch all up on you anyway. So just measure your length, pretty long wing, and then do it like you would a duck. You know, a pinch wrap. I'm pinching the feathers and the hook, and then just do a pinch wrap right there, a couple of them, and then keep them on top. Obviously that is flared up higher than I want, so I'm going to pull it back and then do, just maybe a few medium wraps right here and see if that has laid it down flatter. It has, but you can see they're kind of bunched up right there. Yeah, that's hard to avoid sometimes with these mallard, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to cut this off and then we'll move on to the next component. And this one, recipe calls for a brown hackle. And it doesn't necessarily say soft hackle, but I would use hen if you've got it. And if you don't and you're using a rooster, just use one of the softer feathers. And let's create a little catch-in point right here. Just that little notch. And I'm going to tie it in with the concave side toward the hook. Probably doesn't matter because it might flip around on you anyway. So with a couple wraps right there, fold that back over and a couple more. Leave our thread up front where we're going to finish this head. I do need to snip this tip off. Okay. Now, I guess I should grab my hackle pliers, but I'm not. Just going to pull these back. Try 2 wraps, see if that gives you enough fibers. If it doesn't, then I'd go with 3. I think that's 2 right there. Let's do 3. Okay, that's 3. Let's go ahead and catch this off, and we'll snip the excess and then see what we need to do to get them swept back. Okay, I got 2 wraps holding that feather stem in. Let's just cut this off. Try not to cut any of the extra fibers. I think that's a big enough hackle. It's not going to be too bushy on us. So let's just pull this back right here and then build a head. You can take your thread right back to the eye and then take a few wraps up over these fibers so you keep them swept back. Okay, I think that's going to be fine right there. I want a little bit bigger of a head and to bury any of these, stems, nubs that are sticking through. Okay, I think that's going to be fine. Let's put a whip finish on this and see if we've got any cleanup. What I'll do with this, sometimes just put some tension on my thread, pull it down, open my scissors, and then just go up in there and saw it off. Sometimes that will keep you from getting a little tag hanging off your head. Sometimes it doesn't work, but it looks like it did in this case. So any cleanup? Nah, I think we're good. Just drop a head cement, and this thing's ready to go. So that's it, the Reub Wood, or Reuben Wood. Pretty cool, old school wet fly. I appreciate you watching, everybody. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.